This is the Amp Hour Podcast, recorded April 22nd, 2012. Episode 92, Vellicate, Videogame, Vocation.
Welcome to the Amp Hour. I'm Dave Jones from the EEV blog.
And I'm Chris Gamble of Chris Gamble's Analog Life. And today we have a very special guest working on some new hardware at a interesting firm up in the northwest area of the U.S. And let's see, what's this person's name here? Jeff Kaiser? What the hell? Jeff?
Wow, okay.
All right, yeah, Jeff Kaiser. Welcome, Woo! Jeff Kaiser.
Yes, sir.
Hey, guys.
Hey, man.
How's it going?
Good. We thought we'd give you a bit of a intro.
Yeah.
Because you're not a regular here. This is the first time you've been on, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely no. We definitely don't have a tag now for episodes that have Jeff in them.
Right. How many guests have we had on the show?
Oh,
I wonder.
it's probably pushing 7 or 8 now, right? Are we up to 10? I don't think we're up to 10 yet.
Yeah, at least. I don't know.
Yeah. But Jeff.
I have to start thinking.
Yeah, Jeff has been here a couple times, and we love having Jeff on here.
Yeah,
He's a regular.
Thanks for having me on again. It feels like it's been a while, but
It has been a while.
yeah.
Yeah.
About 10 episodes, actually. Huh. But you got a job, man.
Oh, yeah, you've got huge news. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I think a lot of people, well, anybody that reads my blog or follows me on Twitter probably knows this, but
And you should.
Yeah, if they don't.
If you're not.
you could, yeah, Mightyome, at Mightyome on Twitter and mightyome.com/blog. But yeah, the big news is that in June, I'll be joining the hardware team at Valve.
Valve.
Yeah.
See, I had never heard of Valve before Jerry.
Right.
Oh, I see, yeah.
Because it's a gaming company, right?
Historically,
And
yeah.
it's like I'm not really into gaming.
Yeah,
so.
it is a gaming company. They're definitely, I think a lot of people that were playing video games in the late 90s remember Half-Life. That's probably the thing that Valve is most well known for is the Half-Life series. But they have a bunch of other games that are pretty big. You know, it's
Portal.
funny.
Portal's a big one, right?
Portal is the other really big one. Yeah.
I haven't played any of these. So.
Well, it's funny. I was doing some research, quote unquote, and I actually just recently downloaded Portal 2 and Team Fortress. And
I'm doing research.
I'm studying.
I'm
studying for my interview. But
for 12 hours straight.
right.
With Mountain Dew and Cheetos and Funyuns.
Yeah, you know, I'm not much of a gamer, and it's funny because you go into a place like this that has like so much culture based around the games, and there are so many people that are huge fans of everything that Valve has ever done, and to come and not really be a part of that world, there are so many inside jokes that I don't get.
The cake is a lie?
Yep.
Is that one of them?
That exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, exactly, Dave.
The list
I still
goes
don't know
on
what it
and on.
means. I have no idea what it means, but I see it so many places.
I don't know what it means.
That I'm like, oh, okay, I've heard of that.
So clearly, I'm going to have to play some of these games, so at least I get the jokes because
At least Wikipedia.
it's
or
really
something,
awkward.
Right.
Right.
At least we could cheat. Right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
You'll be like most engineers are at companies where people talk about like sporting events, and you're like, oh yeah, you know, the ball, and it goes down the pitch, you know, whatever.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah, so I'm really excited. It you know, it's really cool. I'm super stoked to be joining Valve. Not so excited about having to pack up everything I own and move it across the country again.
Well, you've done
Well,
that
I
one.
thought
Again.
that would be the exciting part, actually, because the change is as good as a holiday.
Obviously,
so-
Dave has not moved in a while.
No, well, I've never moved
Yeah.
outside of Sydney,
Yeah.
so you know, I don't know.
You know,
So,
it gets.
I'm talking out my
I've
arse
moved
again.
a lot, and it does get kind of old after a
Oh, yeah, it
while.
does.
Right,
I'm really
okay.
excited about. Valve is located in Bellevue, which is right across the water from Seattle,
which is expensive.
Right. It's actually surprisingly expensive. It's reminiscent of the Bay Area, so in some ways, it's going to be kind of like going back into that whole scene again.
Yep.
You get the talk when you talk to anybody that's talking about real estate, rental prices, anything. They look at where you're from and you're from Texas. You might want to sit down for this.
So they're based in Seattle, are they?
They are. Yeah, they're based in Bellevue, which is essentially Seattle. It's kind of like calling San Francisco Oakland, or I guess vice versa, calling Oakland San Francisco, but it's right across a bridge from Seattle. Valve has a beautiful office in downtown Bellevue. It's I've been there, and it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Being a gaming company, I can't help but have the stereotype visualization of all these fat, smelly guys sitting around in gaming t-shirts. Just
that's not nice.
That's absolutely not true.
Games.
Not true at all.
Okay.
No. I've actually
stereotype.
There are companies like Valve, I think, will tend to smash through a lot of stereotypes that you might expect. I was expecting that, and I was also expecting that the average age would be very low, but that's not entirely true. And I think part of it is that a lot of people that are working at Valve have been there for like 10 years.
Wow.
And so
that's a long time in this business.
That's right.
Wow.
Yeah, so
geez, they must be doing something right.
And I think a lot of those stereotypes too are people that you always got to separate the people that play games versus the ones that make games, or
That's right.
in any kind of situation, right? I mean, I used to work on test equipment. I had no idea how test equipment worked. I wasn't a test equipment user other than a couple easy things on my bench, but it's the same kind of thing.
That's in engineering. I found that most people who are engineers aren't hobbyists. They don't give a shit. It's just their day job.
Yeah. No, I agree.
I mean, it's probably only 10, 15, even 20% tops would actually have an interest in it outside of work. And maybe that's the same for software gaming programmers.
Oh yeah, so at the end of the day, they get home and they definitely don't want to see a video game, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I don't think there are any hard rules about that at Valve, at least. I think there are people that are really passionate about games, that are playing games after hours. I've been at the office late, and there's people playing games. So I mean, if you're going to play games, they spec out like the top of the line gaming PC for everybody at the company. So you've got everything there. I'm sure you're right. I think there's a balance between people that are hardcore gamers and then people who are, like Chris said, are good at making games, not necessarily playing the games. Although I think you certainly do need people that are good at playing games to understand how to make good games. There's probably a correlation, but anyway.
Yep. Yeah, it makes sense.
But not necessarily. You probably couldn't do a good game with just passionate gamers.
Yeah,
you probably need those people who don't have the vested interest in it, don't have the passionate interest in it to actually make it good, perhaps.
I don't know.
Maybe it's just like a fresh set of eyes,
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I mean, you don't usually hear about that, because usually you hear about you want fans of something to be a designer of it, but not necessarily. I mean,
not necessarily people who actually hardcore program all the guts of it, because they might just they might miss things or do things differently to what actually makes a good game.
Yeah.
They might think they know because they're passionate in it and they've played 10 million hours of World of Warcraft or something, but
that's a different company, Dave. So
yeah, I know.
But so today we were going to talk to you about we can't really talk to you much about the company itself because of non-disclosures, everything. At least the details of it, but definitely the culture of there was one thing that we've seen posted throughout the week, and that was really interesting. And also just the whole getting a job thing, that's always interesting too, because in terms of desirable companies, this is probably one of the top ones up there. Once they announced that they're actually looking for hardware folks, I saw a lot of interest. But
see, it's not the first company I would have thought of. Where if you're a hardware engineer, you go into a software company? Right. What the?
Yeah, that's true.
Yep,
that's true.
Please explain in any way that you're able. of course.
Well, I think Valve is famous for having a very unique culture and a very strong culture as well. They really value the work environment, and it's very different from at least what I've been used to at companies that I've worked at, especially big engineering corporations are probably as far removed from the culture at Valve as possible. And I think most significantly, Valve has no managers. So nobody has a boss.
It's flat
it's
land,
completely
is it?
flat. Yeah, it is flatland. And by the
Flat
way,
land.
this is all talked about in the Handbook for New Employees, which I did a blog post about on Friday.
Which has been leaked, apparently.
Yeah, which was leaked. And so you can actually go and download a PDF copy of the same handbook that new employees that are joining Valve get. And they gave me a copy when I was there for my interview. And it's actually a pretty interesting read. And anybody
But just to be
that
clear, you're not the one who leaked it, right? You just
No,
this is
I'm not.
post leak. Jeff happened to
Yeah,
share.
I posted, and then I think it was like less than 24 hours later, another blog linked to my post and said, "Oh, well, we have access to the whole PDF." So yeah, kind of funny how that works. But yeah, so anyway, this book talks about what it's like to work at Valve and how it's different, and it's very different from other companies. You're used to, having a boss, right? That's pretty much standard issue working at an engineering company. There's going to be some guy in middle management that's breathing down your back.
Without bosses, there would be no Dilbert. Let's just say that. How about that?
The closest I've come to that is actually working at Altium. That was very, nebulous. I didn't really, for a long time, I didn't really have a boss.
What Dave's saying is he can't be managed. That's what he's really saying.
Right.
No, it's like, people would come up to you randomly and, ask if you can do something, Either the owner, the boss, would come up and say, do so. And, of course, everyone knows that he ranks the highest, you know.
Right,
So,
yeah.
if the owner came around and said, do something, well, you drop whatever else you're working on and you
see
do
this
that
is
little thing for him.
This is specifically not like that. So they're very adamant that Gabe Newell, who is the president of Valve, he's one of the founders who started Valve. You can not do what he tells you to do. And it's entirely okay. Now,
Which is weird. That is a weird thing to think about.
It is weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so no one can actually tell you what projects to work on. Now, they can ask for your help, or they can say, hey, I'm working on this really cool thing, and I think this will be really valuable for the company. Would you like to come and help me work on it? That's how work gets distributed in the company, is that people have cool ideas, and then they approach other people at the company and say, hey, I need somebody who's really good at writing firmware for this cool idea. Are you interested in working on this project? And so it's a much more like organic way of creating projects and getting resources from within the company. And I've heard it can actually be competitive, because people who are really good, everyone wants them on their project, right?
I was going to say, otherwise, how do you control this? Because otherwise you'd have everyone wanting to work on the coolest new project, and nobody wants to work on the old shit anymore.
But that's not, fortunately, I don't think that there's just one cool new project. There's so much going on at the company that it's hard to run out of interesting things to work on. And I think that if there aren't enough interesting things to work on, then that's a sign that somebody should think of something else to do, right? So yeah,
okay.
And it's actually not a perfect system by any means, and the handbook actually talks about that a little bit. Occasionally it can kind of go sideways, and there are some trade-offs, right, to having every employee be responsible for figuring out what they want to work on. And the handbook talks about that, but in general, it works really well. And Valve has been wildly successful and has had this structure in place since the beginning. So it's been.
There's not many other companies doing that. You hear about it. I've been talking about self-assembling teams with like coworkers and how great of an idea that is. But it always comes down to like, but management and existing hierarchies, all that kind of stuff. But
I think it's hard. It would be very hard to implement something like this in an existing company where people are used to being told what to do.
Exactly.
And I've heard from other people at Valve that it typically takes someone about 6 months to become comfortable with the fact that no one is telling you what to do.
Yeah,
and so
no one's coming for
some
you,
people,
right?
Yeah, some people actually can't handle it, and so there have been people that have joined and then haven't worked out. Basically, some people like being managed. Essentially, some people function well.
Of course,
Well, you think about it from like the whole perspective of like, you're going through school for what, 20 some years. People go through school and they're told what to do. Like, it's like the system that is imposed upon us, and then real world hits, and usually there is not that, like sometimes there's that case, but sometimes there's not. If you go into business for yourself, it's not there, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's just it's endemic of the system, right? It's like, it's just what it is, It's just, so you have to adjust, and good luck with that, buddy.
I love this chapter here, risks. What if I screw up? They've got a chapter. Nobody has ever been fired at Valve for making a mistake.
Yeah, and I mean,
it wouldn't make any sense for us to operate that way, and that's very true.
Yeah,
that's very true.
They're very serious about this too. I mean, this is definitely my experience is that, and I guess I'll let you know because I haven't started yet. But from what I've seen, this is really true. They're not just making this stuff up to make a handout. This is actually the culture that's in place. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I'm looking forward to the work, and I'm looking forward to working with some really awesome people, and I'm also really interested to see how this actually works. And it's going to be really different than any place I've ever worked before.
It sounds insane. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
It sounds really
I agree.
awesomely insane.
Yep.
Well, let's talk about who you're working with, because that is an interesting, very incestuous thing.
I don't know that I would call it incestuous.
Here's what I would say about it. I would say, if you guys poach any more guests of the Amp Hour, we're going to start charging you royalties. I swear to God, Jerry, if you're listening right now, do not take any more of our guests away from us, because we know one of the reasons we asked Jeff on, because we're like, well, he's probably busy for the next couple months now. I mean, it's just,
right.
I'm sure you're just going to be tied up, right?
So, well, let's start. I don't think you've actually mentioned you're actually working in the hardware group.
That's
right?
correct.
So you're still a hardware engineer. It's not like you're going to go and be actually programming games.
No, I think I would do a really horrible job of that.
Right.
Yeah.
So say we all.
If that's what I was hired for, I'm in for deep trouble. But no, I'm actually joining the hardware team, and I think my title is hardware engineer, even though people don't officially have titles at Valve. Right. And so I'm going to be making physical things, and
yay,
excellent,
yep,
woohoo,
yeah. So it's the team is looking for people who can make stuff, and so.
So maybe our audience would be interested in that as well, because we've seen job postings. I mean, we've seen a couple of job posting posted. So if people are interested, they can get in touch with Jeff or directly with Valve. And
and I have to say, since I announced that I was joining Valve, I've been getting attacked with resumes.
All right.
Yeah, and I have
As
to
if
ask
moving
people
wasn't hard
to,
Are there that many people who want to work in Seattle? Or are there lots of unemployed people? Or people? Is that a culture in the US where you move where the work is? Because that's
absolutely.
not so much a culture here.
It is definitely the culture
right.
here. Yeah.
See, that's totally different. It's like you guys are used to that. It's like you were talking about before, how you're brought up in school to do that. You guys are brought up with the culture of, moving interstate, moving away from your family to go to university.
Right.
Which I've mentioned on here before. That's not the culture here in Australia.
Yeah.
So I guess that sort of extends itself to moving for work. Not many people will move interstate for work here.
Yeah, here it's definitely the rule. And I've moved a few times for jobs, so to me it's not unusual at all. Right. I don't think it's necessarily Seattle that's the draw. I think it's just Valve. I think a lot of people really want to work for Valve, given the culture, and also given the kinds of projects that are going on, and given the people that they'll be working with. And I mean, for me, all of those things were definitely factors. I mean, I couldn't ask to work with a better group of people. I don't know if Chris, you said, but Jerry Ellsworth is at Valve. And Ben Krasnow is at Valve as well. And so these are both super talented, awesome engineers. And that was definitely a factor in my decision was, well, if I could pick people to work with, they're pretty high up on the list, right?
And that is a big factor in working. I mean, like, you don't necessarily need to be best friend. You know, if people are moving into a new job situation, right? You don't need to be best friends with the people you're working with, right? But there always has to be that chemistry and the willingness to, slog through problems together, right? That's definitely a big deal. And
if you think about it, they're building a team, and if you get people like that on a team, it makes other people want to work hard to make the team successful.
Well, exactly.
I've got a very similar story, actually, which just dawned on me. That same thing happened at Altium as well. They formed a hardware group when I joined, about 12 months before I joined them. They formed the hardware group from scratch, and because before that they had software guys actually doing the hardware, and so they decided, well, that's not that
dicey.
good, you know. So, so they
what do you mean
decided
the
to
auto
start a
router
hardware
doesn't
group.
work? It's a button for auto routing.
And their first hire was a guy I used to work with, and at our company, and he said, "I'm leaving to go to Altium." We went, "Huh? Why?" That's a software company. And he went, "Well, they're forming a new hardware group." Okay, sounds like fun. Take care, see ya. And 12 months later, I was there, and there was another guy also at the same company who I used to work with, and he joined about 6 months later. So there ended up the three of us formed the plus one other external guy that formed the hardware group at Altium. So, and we were all from the same company, from the same lab, and the cubicles sort of next to each other, kind of thing. And we all just ended up at the same company. And that probably had something to do with it. Oh, Jeff works there. Great. That's an incentive for going there because the people who were there already. So
and that also speaks to the
that.
benefits of. I mean, we've talked on here before about networking, and I've expressed my own disdain about. I always used to hate. Well, it's not what it's who you know, and it's like, well, not really though. I mean, like it's who you know to start with, and then you got to get through the process, right? I mean, but. It's the same thing with Altium and now Valve. It's like, it's a lot easier to hear about new jobs if you're talking to someone personally versus going through HR and, hearing about it after everyone hears about it. There's benefits to that. That's how I found all my jobs. Dave, I don't know about...
Well, that's how I got the job at Altium, was my friend who now worked there, my former colleague, phoned me up and said, "Hey, we need an extra person. Are you interested?"
Exactly, yep.
And I'm sure you'll agree with this, Jeff. It's you didn't get the job because of who you are and who you know. That just got you in the door, so to speak. But you had to, earn your spot there, just like anyone else.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. I mean, it helped that I already had this history with two of the people that were on the hardware team. But I went through the interview process just like everybody else, and they sent me through the ringer. I mean, it was extremely challenging, and I had the conversation with Jerry before going up for the interview that, you might not make it through this. And it was all out there that this interview process is extremely difficult. I've heard that only 1 in 30 people actually gets an offer that goes up for an interview. And so they interview a lot of people. Very few people actually get jobs. And so I was actually completely prepared and kind of at peace with the fact that this might not work out. And that even though this sounds really cool, that I might just not be good enough or the right kind of person, because they're looking not just for experience and knowledge in specific areas, but also what your style is like and whether they think that they would actually like to work with you. And when I say they, I don't just mean the hardware group, I mean the entire company, because it is a flat organization, and they know that they're adding somebody to this organization that's going to be affecting and working with a lot of other people. So you have to get along with everybody. They don't want to just make the hardware group like a little tribe that everybody's cool with everybody, but they don't get along with the rest of the company. That would not work at Valve at all. Absolutely.
And that's really a good way to go into any interview, really. I mean, you should never go in expecting that you're going to have an easy time of it, right? Even if it is even if you're told, "Oh, well, you're shooing." It's like, well, that's never
Yeah.
You've got to do your research to find out what the company culture is like. Because if you say one thing can absolutely just get you thrown straight out the door. If you say one thing wrong that's against their culture.
About 10 hours a week.
Not quite. I'm exaggerating a bit, but
I agree.
If they get a hint that you're not going to fit into their culture, end of story. It doesn't matter who you are, how good you are, you won't get the job.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, you've got to have some sort of inkling of what they're after.
Right.
Yeah,
and research is another good point too. Is that if I'm always amazed when people walk into interviews or even like job fairs or something like that. Like job fairs, it happens a lot more often. But they'll walk up to you at a job fair and be like, "So, what do you guys do?"
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, and I'm kind of like diverting their eyes to the stuff that I designed behind me. It's like, well,
Right.
there's that, but also, then I launch into it. It's like that's not a good start, Like, and if you're in an interview too, that's even worse. If people are like, well, so what will I be working on? And what I mean, like, that's not a great question. But so, what kind of work do you guys do? It's like, okay, you should know that. Like,
Right.
Well, especially if you're a big name in the industry, Imagine, someone who's a graduate in engineering and they haven't heard of Agilent or they haven't heard of Tektronix, and they walk up to you at the career fair at the university or whatever it is, and they say, "Well, who are you?" Well, you would go, "Well, just piss off, go away. If you haven't heard of us, then you don't care about the industry, or you're
or just come see us in a couple of years. That's another thing.
That's a big red cross straight away.
Yeah, and this actually gets into a segment that I'd like to call "How do I get a job at a company?" and then in parentheses, like Valve.
Right.
Oh man, he's developing segments now, Dave. We can't let this guy go. We got to have this Jeff Kaiser. He's a great. Jeff, you're
I have
hired.
to say, since I announced, I said that I was getting a lot of resumes, and I've definitely been approached by several people who are saying
hardware or software
hardware
resumes?
hardware.
Right.
Yeah, people
okay.
know that I'm an electrical engineer, and people know that I joined Valve in the hardware side. And so there have been quite a few people that read my blog or have seen posts on Hackaday, et cetera, that have said, "Oh, hey, how can I get in here? This sounds really cool. This sounds like something that I want to do. How can I get it in?" And it's not so much like, can you send my resume to Jerry and like tell them to interview me? But it's more like, how do I prepare myself for an interview there, or what are they looking for? And I think that I can say a few things that I think helped me, and I don't know if it's necessarily going to help everybody, but for me, it was there were a few things that I think made the whole process much easier. And I think that if you think about it, what's a company like Valve looking for? Well, they're looking for people with experience, right? And Valve actually has kind of an interesting philosophy about this. They're looking for people that have what they call a T structure, and that means that they have deep experience in one area, but then they're also kind of a generalist, right? So they can do a lot of different things, but they are also really knowledgeable in one particular area. And so, for me, I've been doing RF design for about 10 years now, right? So I have that body of experience that if you look at my resume, you go, oh, yeah, this guy's done RFIC design and all these things. But I also am interested in microcontrollers. And so I've done some firmware, I've done PCB design, I've done analog circuit design. And so if you think about it, you want to try to build this image of yourself where you've got this large amount of experience based on your resume where they can look and say, okay, he worked for Agilent, he worked for Keithley, whatever. He's done all these things. Maybe he went to grad school. He's got a master's degree. He's got 4, 5, 6+ years of experience. But then you also want to have a lot of things that are kind of making it so that you would be useful at a company where you have to wear a lot of hats, right? Because Valve isn't looking for people that just do one thing. You could be a really, really good analog circuit designer, but if that's all you're good at, you're actually not very useful in a company where you'll be asked to work on a wide variety of projects, right?
Right, because there are companies that are like that, where you're the guy in the cubicle and you're grinding away at spice simulations, and that's what you do, right? You're that guy, and you're pigeonholed, and you're really good at it. But once you become redundant, as Dave says it, or whatever else, then you're kind of up a creek,
That's right, and I've been that guy. I mean, me too. I mean, I've did PA design for quite a few years. And eventually realized that power amplifier design. So RF power amplifiers and doing power amplifier IC design. And I realized that I was becoming kind of pigeonholed. Like there was this one thing that I was doing, and I was designing the same circuits over and over and over. And I think that engineering, maybe more so than other areas or disciplines, tends to breed engineers who are only good at doing one specific task, right? And I think that there are a few ways that you can actually defend against that. And one is to work for a startup.
Yep.
Right. So after
Like cleaning toilets and you don't have a life.
Right. So if you have a bit of experience and then go work for a startup, you're probably going to be exposed to a lot of other areas, right? And you'll be required to do things just to get whatever needs to get done, right? You can't just...
You'll be required to do everything.
That's right.
You'll be the muffin man. You'll be
but
you'll be sweeping the floors.
But the other thing you can do is you can do extracurricular activities. And for me, this is stuff like doing projects for the Maker Faire. I've got the blog.
Yep.
I do a lot of different open source hardware projects. And so you kind of can increase your breadth by doing things in your off hours that are not necessarily part of your day job, but are still completely relevant, right? Like you should list that stuff on your resume, right? Because it's really
We've
interesting.
mentioned that countless times. In fact, that can be some of the most important stuff on your resume.
I read the resumes
Is
from
what
the
you
bottom
do
up.
outside of
I say
hours.
that all the time.
Yeah.
If you're not reading resumes from the bottom up, you're reading them the wrong way, I think.
I completely agree with that. Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah. So if you want to get a job at a company that's doing hardware design, that's like Valve, or I'm sure that Valve's situation is maybe a little different, but I think that this is good general advice. You need to have the experience. You need to build stuff, whether it's for your company or on your own time, and then you need to start a website and you need to document those projects, right? I mean, you have to have kind of this body of work that's easily searchable online. Like if I go to Google and I search for a candidate's name, I should get some cool stuff, right? Like there should be some hits and there should be a list of projects somewhere, right? Like it shouldn't be hard to have to find interesting projects that someone's worked on. That kind of stuff makes a candidate way, way more interesting. Just to have that whole body of work that's easily searchable online that shows that this person is passionate about doing engineering. They're not just doing their day job.
And articulate about it too. I mean, not necessarily like loquacious as some certain people are, but sorry, that was horrible. That was just I'm going to have to back that up. I apologize for that. But you don't have to write about it in detail. But you can have other people write about it too. I mean, or like if you're publishing in a magazine, right? I mean, like Dave, you did that for many years, right?
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I mean, it doesn't have to be necessarily just a website, right, Jeff? I mean, it could be lots of different things, but
I agree.
Yep.
Yeah.
Finding someone's body of work is important. I agree with that.
I've got a friend, a colleague, who puts every project he's ever worked on in chronological order on his website, not just his own projects, but company stuff he's done at the company. So he's very careful not to do anything that was, classified secret or anything like that. But like he'll take photos of all the prototypes he built and the boards he laid out and the circuits if possible, and they're all there in chronological order. You can go through his, complete 10, 15-year history of every project he's ever worked on.
Awesome.
That's a great idea.
It's great, and
and it's almost like it's a portfolio method, right? I mean, that's
a portfolio
exactly right.
method. Yeah,
having a portfolio, I think, makes you so much more compelling than just being flat. Like having, a resume is, it's just not. It doesn't pop, right? Even if you've got some great projects on there, just writing a few words about them, you really don't get a sense. And so having like a portfolio of pictures, or even better,
a photo tells 1,000
That's right.
words.
I will never forget the candidate who walked up to me and showed me a picture of his bench. Now, granted, that is a rigged question from the start, right? Because it's me, and I like seeing pictures of people's benches, but. Like you walk up to someone at a job fair and you do that, and it's like, holy crap, let me talk about this and this and this and this and this, right?
Absolutely.
It's just conversation starters.
And I agree with Dave. You've said this before, but if you're interviewing at a hardware company, bring hardware.
Yes.
Right? You want to bring stuff because that shows that you can actually make things, right? And so you want to bring boards you've worked on or projects. And so, put it all in your suitcase and just bring it all. Stuff your backpack full of projects.
The other advantage to doing that is that it gives you something to talk about, because a lot of people get nervous in an interview, and they'll ask you the famous thing. Well, would you like to talk about it?
Tell
do
me
you
about
have
yourself.
any other questions to ask?
Yeah.
Tell me about yourself. And well, you can open your suitcase and here's all your bloody projects, and you can talk until the cows come home because you know that stuff.
Yeah, it's almost like it's like your small little center. You're like holding hardware. You're like, oh, I'm at home now. Like I can talk about the pinout on this FPGA, and you could pick anything on there, right?
And just remember,
I know anything.
Every
random,
minute you spend talking about your own projects is a minute they can't ask you really hard questions.
Exactly.
There's Jeff's method, folks.
Yeah, I think it's I think absolutely anybody that's going into an interview for a hardware engineering problem that doesn't have a lot of cool stuff to show off is really not effectively demonstrating what they're all about. Like, and if you don't have that stuff, you need to make that. You need to make it a priority to start some cool projects. And, say you've got a day job in the defense industry and you can't talk about anything you're working on. Well, you know what? You got to go home and you've got to start some open source hardware projects or do something, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't need to be directly related to what you'd be working on at the company you're interviewing with. Even things that are just interesting, right? They give you something to talk about that you're confident, that you're good at explaining. It shows that you can communicate. It shows that you're passionate about what you're doing. I think you can't really understate the value of having prototypes or some kind of hardware with you.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree. One thing I regret is that I did not document and photograph the projects I've worked on at all the companies I've worked at.
Yeah.
See,
There's so much stuff. I regret. There's one thing I regret. That's it.
See, I wish I could do that, except that I'd be concerned because there's a lot of IP in there, and the last thing I want is to get in trouble.
You mean
But
even
if
for
you
yourself,
just show
Dave?
them at an interview, right? It's never going to get. It's not like you have to put it on your website. But at a job interview, you can open your suitcase. Okay, here's some photos of some
Yeah, as
hardware.
long as it's not
Sorry,
an
I'm
interview
not
with the
allowed
competitor.
To,
Yeah, I was going to say that's dicey
well,
because
exactly.
then you might not show
Well,
that you're
no,
good
that
with
can be
people's
a good
IP,
thing.
right? I mean, that's
Well,
something else that companies could be concerned about, but
Well,
you can measure that when you get
You have to be
there, right?
very sensitive about that. Yeah,
exactly.
when I interviewed at Valve, I actually brought a portfolio on my iPad. I just stuffed it full of photos.
Nice.
And what I did is I couldn't share photos of things I'd worked on, but I just went on Google and I found images online that were similar, or maybe even of the packaged final result, because that's all
Right.
public knowledge. It's
You do public photos.
That's a
and
good
stuff
idea,
like that,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, like this is what the thing I designed goes into, and I can show you that, and I can explain how my thing plays into that. And so I think that's all very important. And then the last part, which in my case was particularly valuable, is the value of networking, right? You want to go to the Maker Faire, and you don't
Yes,
just want to
you
go
do.
as an attendee, but you want to go as a participant, because then you have there's a thing that you're there for, and you get to go to the Maker Night the night before, and there's all these opportunities to meet really interesting people. And I think that the value of that networking is equally as important as having really good hardware projects, because if you don't know people and you're not kind of in this scene, you're not going to be exposed to as many opportunities as you would otherwise. And go to Dorkbot meetings, join your local hackerspace, go to classes at the hackerspace, teach classes at the hackerspace. I mean, don't join a hackerspace and then try to work for the White House, but obviously you have to be sensitive about what your employer's looking for and the kinds of things that they're going to value and the kinds of things that might freak them out a little bit. And I mean, you can choose to kind of portray your activities in a certain light depending on who you're applying to. But, that networking is, I think, really, really valuable. And who knows, you might run into somebody at a pizza party that turns out inviting you up for an interview. Not that that's happened to anybody I know, but
That's how I got
strange
that's how I
things
got the
happen.
consultant job. I mean, that's...
Yeah.
Oh, you were being serious, weren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing we haven't touched on, Jeff, is that you've been a contractor for, a consultant. You've had your own business. You've worked for yourself for, 4 years
That's
or something?
right.
And now you're going back to the real world, in quote marks.
Yeah, but,
How does that feel?
I think that if you consider Valve to be the real world, the real world
Right.
is a pretty cool place. I would actually approach that
but
from a
still,
different
you're
angle and say
doing
that
something.
Yeah,
But you're still doing something for someone else.
that's
the thing.
true, and I definitely it took me a lot of time to come to a decision about that, and it was a very difficult decision, because I do like having full creative freedom over what I work on and being able to pick and choose the projects that I'd like to spend time working on. I'm definitely going to miss that. But on the other hand, I think that if I had to choose a company to be spending my time working in service to, I think Valve is probably one of the best choices I could have made. Is the amount of creative freedom and ability to control your own projects, etc., is much better than...
I thought that would be the case at Altium, and it was for 6 months, and then once the grind came in and you realised that it wasn't as flexible as you first made out, so you've just got to be careful there. I'm just talking in general of people. You know, you think you've found your dream job, but really, you know, it may not always... it may be that case for the first couple of months. You may think this is fantastic, but then you start to realise how the company really works. Or
and I mean,
like
at the end of the day,
You
it
know.
is a job, right?
Yeah, of course. That's right. So do you think you're still going to work on your own projects? Do you think you'll have time to work on your own projects?
That's a
work?
really good question. And Chris and I talked about this a little bit before the show. I'm planning to continue with the website, obviously. I mean, it doesn't take a lot of time to maintain a website. I do think that over the next 3 to 6 months, you're not going to see too much out of me because I'm going to be concerned with moving and starting a new job and all this stuff. But I do plan to continue doing the blog, and I do plan to continue going to the Maker Faire, bringing projects. I mean, I value that a lot, and I hope that I still have the free time to be able to do that kind of fun stuff. Am I going to continue the kit business? Most likely, yes, but probably in a reduced capacity. I mean, certainly I'm not going to be able to do direct sales at the level that I've been doing, and I'll probably be looking at outsourcing some parts of the process because, you know, the last thing that I want to be spending my weekends doing is kitting kits, putting parts in bags.
Right.
In it.
So you'll be able to buy your stuff at SparkFun or something like that, probably.
Yeah, we'll have to see. There's a number of different ways that I can go, and I honestly, I'm still in the middle of producing a huge number of kits before I move. So I'm still in the thick of it, and once I get some of this stuff out of the way, I'm going to take a step back and try to figure out what makes sense. You know, there's a couple companies now that are basically will handle all the physical things, but then pay you like a commission or a royalty. That's something that is probably an option, but I have to be very careful about it because I don't want to sacrifice quality in outsourcing any parts of this.
Yes.
I'm so I really hold the kits to a very high standard, and I'd hate to see them suffer.
Yep, same here.
Right.
Speaking of which, there is one huge... I know, get your bingo sheets ready, folks, but we'll go away from the Valve thing for a minute and we'll talk about the biggest Kickstarter project. Have you heard about this one, Jeff?
No.
Oh, it's a watch.
You
It's
haven't heard
called
about
the
this,
Pebble
Jeff?
watch.
I
it's
have
huge
heard about
news.
this one.
It has gained... It's over $5 million
Is it
already,
5?
but I think
Oh.
it reached its... Yeah, it's 5 already, I
Yeah.
believe. And I think I looked last night. And it got to $3 million in like 5 days
Yeah.
or something.
Wow.
Oh,
And the specs are killer. I mean,
is-
it really is.
it looks like a very nice product. But the obsession with watches, you know. And it's just incredible. And they've got it, and now they're saying, they've probably been saying from the start that it won't be available until September. So, you know, pay your money up now, and they're going to instantly get at least $5 million in their account.
$6 million. I
'Cause
just
it's got,
looked.
6 million, and it's got like 30 days left.
Wow.
26
Or
days
something,
left.
hasn't
Yep,
it?
that's crazy.
26 days left.
That's bonkers.
That's insane.
Yeah.
It's the biggest Kickstarter project in history, and
Although, albeit short history.
it's-
It's a short history so far. But,
it's a short history, and it is deservedly so. They have a track record in actually producing this stuff, and it's a great product, and I'm probably going to buy
Yeah,
one.
well, you have a watch fetish as
my
well.
first. Well, I do, yes. And it's just amazing, and they've got to somehow produce this. They'll instantly have the money. Their bank will be, you know, their cup will be overfloweth with cash. They'll be sitting on a throne of cash, as you say, Jeff, Chris.
Yeah.
And
You know, I was talking
they've
about
got to
this the other
produce
day
so.
at work.
They've got to deliver.
About the kit. This is kind of kit, but this is a little bit beyond it. I think
Kind
even
of,
Kickstarter
yeah.
in general, it's kind of beyond the kit side of things. And we've talked to Ian before.
Yeah, but you're still only talking about a couple of thousand, right? We're not talking that they're going to produce, you know, 10, 30, 50 or 100,000 of these things. It's only a couple of
25,000
thousand.
at least right now.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's
25,
based on the pledges, so that's 25,000 so
is
far.
It? Oh, I thought it was up to...
But I was just talking to someone about like, how Apple started up and how, like you hear interviews with the Woz and Steve Jobs and stuff, and how they pushed out pricing terms. We've talked about suppliers on here before, right? And that's a big part of the kit business is, try and get all your inventory in for your parts and trying to hold off on paying the inventory people before you get paid for your stuff. Well, the Kickstarter thing is crazy because you get paid all up front, like that whole arbitrage thing is just moot now. It doesn't exist. You have this $6 million, like Dave says, and you can throw some weight around with that kind of money, right? So, talk about kit business. I don't know, man. That's crazy.
But it's a lot of pressure too, because you've got to produce. You've got those 20,000 people breathing down your neck. When's the product available? And they're saying it won't be available until September or something.
Right.
So,
right.
But still, you've got to deliver, and that's a lot of pressure.
Yes.
Wow.
And we've talked before about just supply chain kind of issues and stuff like that before, and even Apple's talked about their supply chain and how they have to be in China. And then like I saw this video with Ian this week, the Dangerous Prototypes. You guys see that video on YouTube?
No.
Oh, so Dangerous Prototypes was at the Maker Faire in China, and Ian he finally went to the Shenzhen market. So we've talked to Bunny on the show before, and so Ian went to the Shenzhen market, which is the big SEG market, many floors. And I'm getting back there eventually. But basically, like Apple's talked about like, we have to be in China for the supply chain. A lot of electronics companies say that kind of thing. And this is the same kind of thing. You go to like a Pebble, right, with these huge amounts of, you need 25,000 units to start with. And if you need to change your unit around at all, you need to be there so you can walk down the street to this market, this SEG market, and you can buy 25,000 new screens from a street vendor, basically, like that kind of thing. That's crazy, like that. When you get to that kind of level, it's a whole nother ballgame.
You would really want to be very sure of your design, of your final production design before you put it on Kickstarter. Imagine if you just had some crude prototypes, you got them from eMachine Shop or something, and you put it on there and it was a bit rough and ready, and all of a sudden you got this pressure to produce a final production product.
Right.
People are expecting high quality,
DFM kind of stuff,
to look like the 3D models and. Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah, I mean, Jeff, you talk about putting parts in a bag on the weekend. Imagine doing that 25,000 times over. It's like, I don't know if that's going to happen, buddy. So
it seems like Kickstarter companies are becoming, like design firms are becoming aware of Kickstarter as a way to, I don't know, turn projects like this into a production design. And I think that obviously they put a lot of work into this before they created the Kickstarter campaign. These aren't amateurs.
I think they did.
Right?
Yep. No.
So I think it's interesting.
But there are a lot out there, though.
Right.
And they promise a lot, and some of them don't deliver or deliver, quality that's far under what people expected.
Right, and being a one-stop shop for like, developing these actual production-ready prototypes, I bet there's a business model in there somewhere of, you kind of seek out the Kickstarter projects and you say, I can make that for you in 10,000 quantities, in a week. If you're ready with that kind of stuff, say you're with a Hackcelerator program, right, and you want to like, even like Seed Studios, that's kind of the same kind of work they do, right? And if you just walked up to a Kickstarter program and be like, I don't think you can really do that, but I can. I bet there's a business model there in there somewhere.
Probably, yeah.
I will not be doing it myself, and
no,
Jeff will not be either.
It's a lot of
he's got a whole new bag, right, Jeff?
Right.
And like and you might think you've got all this money, right? Your bank account is overflowing with all this money, but you can blow that pretty quickly if you have to do a couple of spins or something. Imagine if you did a spin and then you found, oops, you screwed it up somehow.
Yeah.
Then. Well, there can go half your profit margin or something.
Yeah.
So,
Scrapping that many units
be careful.
is the big deal.
Yeah.
Or like retooling for new molds and stuff like that if your plastics are wrong.
Yep.
So all that kind of stuff.
Serious business.
Yep.
So scary. I don't think I'd be able to handle the pressure. I'd be so nervous.
We won't know until we see the calculator watch hit 6 million on Kickstarter.
Yeah, well. Yeah, well, I like Jeff. I like things. I take pride in my projects, and I like them to be exactly. I'm almost a bit anal in the way that I'm going to do things, and and that means, chopping and changing your mind a lot and tweaking things. And, well, I don't know, if you had this, if you had to produce this many, I don't know that you have the luxury to do that.
We definitely didn't see that with the power supply.
Do it yourself. You would have to pay someone. Sorry?
I said we definitely didn't see that with the power supply. Oh, I'm turning the board again,
Oh, right, didn't see, my 13 part, and I still haven't even done the first prototype properly.
You'll get there eventually.
13
It seems to
videos.
me that increasingly companies are using Kickstarter as an alternative to VC funding, right?
And marketing too,
of course.
yeah.
Yeah, and you get the marketing advantage as well. Yeah, nobody cares what Sequoia, I guess, except if you're following that. But this seems it has a very public funding base, but then it also has a very public facing outlet for advertising your company or your product, I guess, in this case. But if you think about it, if you go into it with the mentality of a company that's trying to get VC funding and you go through the same motions, then maybe you'll have a much higher rate of success with using Kickstarter to actually do a project like this. You can't just create a Kickstarter campaign like, I'm kind of interested in doing this.
I'm just gonna float this out
there. That'd be kind of a cool idea.
Yeah,
that's definitely not how the pros are doing it. Like, these guys clearly had all of this thought out, and pretty cool.
And you're giving that all up, huh, Jeff? No more.
Giving up the fortune
but
and
I'm
glory
getting
to
so
go
much more.
You are
to go to Dilbert Land. Yeah,
it's not Dilbert Land.
No, it's not Dilbert Land. I know. It's Flatland.
I'm looking forward to having a regular paycheck again. Baby steps, guys. Come on.
Yeah, man.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah.
So I was wondering. So what about the IP side of things there? I mean, I know you can't talk about like what you'll be working on, but have you heard anything about the the patent structure there? Because we saw some interesting news this week out of Twitter, actually. I mean, obviously that's the software side of things, but they actually have a new patent agreement. Have you guys seen that?
No,
it's on the list. Do tell.
So Twitter came up with a new patent agreement. Basically, they said, okay, so all of our employees are consistently filing for patents, and obviously those are all software patents, so that's a little bit out of the realm of this show, but not that far because it's still technology, right? And basically they said, we're only going to defend patents. We're not going to use them offensively. We're going, and because that's a big thing right now. A lot of the big companies go after other companies and try and either make money off the patents in terms of royalties, or they try and shut down other product lines with offensive patent, saying you've used some part of our patent and you have to stop making this thing immediately. And then obviously the company that's suing then has some kind of competitive advantage that way. So
hang on. What's that I smell?
Oh, is that BS?
Could be BS.
Somebody check this this article's diaper, huh, Dave?
Yeah. Come on. I mean,
Well, yeah, but the interesting thing is that they even said it in the first place. You're not seeing a lot of people saying that, right? I mean, like Jeff said, baby steps, right? I mean, so the real question is this the real thing? I mean, is this? I guess my question for Jeff is: have you heard anything about that at your new job, or have you guys heard anything similar to this otherwise? And what's your general take on it? Like, is this even necessary in the first place?
Well, most companies aren't going to use their patents offensively because it's a very expensive, messy business actually suing someone for patent infringement. Very lengthy, very messy, very costly. It costs tens of millions of dollars. So but I guess when you're at the level of Twitter, right, you're talking, they've got, billions in the bank. So I guess it's just chump change to them.
I don't know if they have billions in the bank
yet. So they
yet.
could go out and use it defensively.
They're still not making money, but
possibly.
But
okay.
Yeah.
But you're probably your average sort of medium-sized company isn't going to go out and use their patents offensively because that can be a big risk. So that's what I've found anyway.
Jeffrey, any word on the new gig? I mean,
I have no idea. I'm not sure.
The other interesting thing about this patent is that, or this new rule is that they say, well, the other thing that's kind of cool about this, they call it the IPA, the Innovators Patent Agreement. Basically, they say that, well, if you're working at our company and you develop a new technology and you want to spin it out, you can actually take your patent with you, which I think I'm getting that right. But basically, because I reacted to that like, whoa, wait a second. I don't know if there's like some kind of terms in there, like the original company owns a good majority of whatever you start up, but that's pretty risky, right? Because now Dave goes to work at ABC Incorporated, right? Or I don't know what you guys do there, Limited or whatever the corporate structure is there, and then he develops
Limited,
he develops a power supply after 14 revs, and and then he says, "Well, I'll see you guys later. I'm going to design this on my own. I'm going to go start a company." It's like Dave just used that as a R&D arm of his personal hobby.
Tells me that it's not that simple. I'm sure. Yeah,
of course it's not. Yeah,
yeah. You know, this actually reminds me of didn't Yahoo get in hot water a month or two back? Somebody that worked for a startup that Yahoo acquired had a patent that Yahoo was suing somebody over, and he was very vocal about, like, I had no idea that this was going to turn into this big thing, and if I had a choice, you know, I wouldn't have said the things I said, because apparently this was one of those situations where the Yahoo acquired a company, and then they took the chief guys of this company, sat them down at a table with some patent lawyers and said, all right, what are all the things we can patent? Just list them off, you know, and then created all these kind of bogus patents based on little bits and pieces of technology that they'd been working on. And this IPA, or, you know, whatever you want to call this, seems like it could at least protect against that, where someone comes up with a creative idea and then they have some assurance that that's not going to be used against somebody else, like offensively, I guess, in the future. So, I mean, yeah, it's interesting. Do you guys have patents? Have your name on patents?
I've got one.
I do not.
Yeah,
I do not either. I don't know. I never really pushed for it, and just haven't been in a situation where. But, you know, I know engineers I've worked with that say, "Oh yeah, I've got my name on, you know, 10 patents." And
well, I hope to. I mean, honestly, it is a goal of mine. I mean, I know it's a silly goal, and it's kind of more of a, it's more ego than anything. But it is a goal of mine.
Yeah.
Just because, you know, judge me however you want to.
Well, there's big bucks in it. I got paid a whole $1 for my patent. I went out and bought half a muffin. I can remember it clearly.
How can you buy half a muffin?
Before.
What's
just the cost per unit
I had to toss in the other $1. You know, I had to toss in the other buck to,
no one wants
get
the
my
stump.
full
You just
muffin.
eat the top. You don't want the stump.
But I remember they came in and they handed over a $1 coin, and they said, "Here's your $1 for your patent. Thank you very much." I went to the cafeteria and I
Did they pat you on the head
my
too?
muffin.
Good game, buddy.
Good job.
You know, I might have had this patent stuff wrong. I don't know if it goes with you. I think what I got confused is that your original intention. So if you don't want it used against other, I should have read this better. Sorry. Let me just read the thing here. The Innovator's Patent Agreement is a new way to do patent assignment that keeps control in the hands of engineers and designers as a commitment from the company to its employees that patents can only be used for defensive purposes. The company will not use patents in offensive litigation without permission of the inventors. The control flows with the patent, so if the company sells the patents to the others, the assignee can only use the patent as the innovator intended. So I think I got that completely wrong. I apologize. That didn't pass the sniff test, as Dave said. But I think it's just like the intention of the don't use it intentionally, or offensively, rather. That goes with the patent wherever it goes, I guess. Which is a big deal with software, right? I mean,
it's interesting.
We see a lot of that with software because, like, right now, a lot of the smartphone vendors are, "Oh, I invented the swipe touch, yada yada. I'm Apple, I'm Samsung, blah 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 blah." You know, like that's a lot of what we see right now. Oh, I'm Android too. Don't forget them, right? Those are like, you know, like that's a lot of what people are bickering about back and forth because there's a ton of money in it. But it's interesting because it just kind of opens up the whole patent debate to a larger context of should there be software patents in the first place? Or as Adam Wolf from Wade and Lane said, you know, why don't people just publish their stuff publicly anyways? Because that's basically what patents are, and then no one can defend it, right? I mean, like, that's a good question too. I mean, I don't know.
Age-old question with a million answers, you know. It's not clear cut.
Yeah.
There's, you know, pros and cons, cases both ways, and, you know, ideally in an ideal world, yes, you want there to be no patents, you want everything to be open and free and shared, and nobody suing each other and all that sort of shit.
Right.
And everyone plays fair and nice, and it's like in the open source hardware industry. People are copying. There's been a recent thing about people are copying open source hardware stuff, and all that sort of stuff. And in an ideal world, well, that sort of thing wouldn't happen. But sigh, it's not.
So speaking of litigation, Chris, what's this about mercury poisoning? Did you add this one, Chris?
Oh no, someone sent this to me actually.
Yeah.
I mean, I added it on here, but yeah, there was a really short link on Hackaday the other day about someone suing companies because he got mercury poisoning from vacuum tubes, which contain mercury.
That's nothing to laugh at.
Yeah,
that's
no,
nothing
it's
to
not.
laugh
It's not
at.
anything to laugh at about.
That's serious
mercury
business.
poisoning, but the fact that he was handling vacuum tubes and.
Yeah, how do you get mercury poisoning from vacuum tubes?
I thought they had mercury inside of them. That's what my understanding was. Yeah. I mean, that's like saying I got lead poisoning from old solder. I mean, right?
Well, so do fluoro tubes. So do fluorescent. Every compact fluorescent tube has mercury in it.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I guess this dude, what is his name? Ryan Inman?
Yeah.
Inman is suing eBay and a bunch of surplus electronics companies, and I think General Electric.
eBay?
Yeah, right.
What, because he bought
apparently
them on eBay?
This guy bought vacuum tubes from a bunch of places across the country, too, not just in one area. And some of them are like ma and pop electronics stores, like Cascade. Surplus is the one. They're in Portland. I've actually never been there, but so Cascade has this link on their website that says we may be forced out of business. Look at this for more information.
This is
and it's
bad.
got a bunch of information about the lawsuit. So this guy Ryan is seeking $75,000 from each of the named list of 20 defendants, including all companies that produce and sell the tubes he has used over the years. And I don't know what the time frame is. I'm not sure if it's 2 years or 20 or 40 years or whatever.
I mean, you got a lot of time in there with tubes, right?
Right. But I don't. So he's alleging that he has toxic metal poisoning, mercury poisoning from the use of vacuum tubes. That sounds like complete bullshit.
Yeah, that sounds.
Yeah. So unless he's buying hundreds of tubes and crushing them up and sniffing
and snorting them,
exactly, crushing and snorting his vacuum tubes, I do not understand how this guy thinks that he got mercury poisoning from vacuum tubes.
Right, and this is what it seems like is we don't want to state a case that's not there, but when you're suing eBay and everyone, if you're suing with a shotgun, basically, you probably are not going to have my sympathy. At least I don't know about anyone else.
No, right. Yeah, he's got some smart ass lawyer who who thinks that that's the way to go and has convinced him that that's the best way to go. And that will fail clearly. I mean that's just ridiculous.
Yep.
Well, I hope it does.
Well, it may not. We're talking about the US here. Sorry, he might actually win.
You never
Scary.
know. You never know. Yeah.
Oh. So our amp hour's up almost.
Yeah.
There's one other thing I didn't just pop back in there, Jeff. I wanted to talk about. I don't want this to be
Here
specific
comes 10 more
to
minutes.
Valve, but yeah, could do. Why not? Let's go over. People love it. And what I wanted to ask, is it common in the US, how we talked about before, how a lot of people move interstate, move around the country for new jobs. Is it common for companies to pay relocation expenses in the US?
It is pretty common for larger, more established companies.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know if startups are going to do that, but like a company like, an Intel or, an Agilent or whatever, they're typically going to pay relocation.
Yeah, it's kind of you match the other companies in your sector basically,
right.
And a lot of job listings say that they'll say we offer relocation, we don't offer relocation, so people can balance that kind of thing because.
So that'd be flights and moving your furniture.
That's the big thing for me.
All that sort of stuff, and maybe I've worked at companies where they'll pay your rent for 3 months until you find a house and stuff.
I haven't seen that, but a lot of companies will provide assistance in finding a rental, which is really cool.
Right.
So they'll hook you up with a local real estate agent that'll actually go out and look at places because you can't be out there the whole time to look at every property that comes up, but. Yeah, I think the benefits vary a bit, and I found that if you're in like a hot area where there's already a lot of engineers, you might be less likely to get as good of a deal. Like a company in the Bay Area probably has a lot less relocation, less desire to offer relocation
Yes.
than someplace that's in like Fargo, right, where there aren't
Right.
a lot of engineers.
You would have to be pretty important to them, right? You would
Right.
have to be not just a dime a
That's
dozen
right.
engineer. You'd
Yeah,
have to
because
be,
they could probably find somebody locally to do assembly
Exactly.
or something like that. So if you're a PCB assembler, you may not get it, but if you're going to be a VP, then yeah, maybe they will pay relocation.
Right,
You
of
know,
course. Well,
I've
of course,
had
you
it-
know, you're on management. Hey,
I've had it.
golden
I've had
ticket,
it both
sonny.
ways. I've gotten relocation assistance, and I've also moved myself multiple times. I move so much that sometimes it works out, and sometimes it doesn't. But
Right.
yeah, it all ends up being part of the offer and the benefits.
Got it. Yeah. Well, I hope it works out for you, Jeff. It's a big move.
Yeah, it is.
You're not only giving up your current home, but you're giving up your own business to
Well, not
go
completely.
back to work for
not
someone.
completely.
Not
yeah,
giving,
I'm not
not
closing the
completely, but
business.
you're used to a certain.
Can I have the Mighty
freedom,
Own name?
You know?
Can I have your website, Jeff?
No, definitely not.
Oh, come
No,
on.
and
man.
I definitely don't want people to think.
I bags all the post-it notes. Come on, let's do it.
Yeah,
It's like when an employee
Yeah.
leaves a
I
company,
wanna
right?
stay
Everyone
for-
fights over
I
the
got
contents of
multimeters.
their cubicle.
Yeah,
I bags the meter. I bags the scope. Yeah.
no, I don't want people to get the idea that I'm shutting everything down and that I'm not going to be supporting kits that are out there and stuff like that. So yeah, the last
Yeah.
thing I want is to have people be panicked about, yeah, I've got this kit, but are the instructions going to be there, and can I still get the support? The answer
Yeah.
is that the
course.
website's going to be there for the foreseeable future, and I'm still going to be doing support and still going to be doing kits, but just kind of at a reduced level because there's only so many hours in the day. And, my primary focus is going to shift from doing the Mighty Ohm stuff to doing stuff for Valve. So obviously that's going to have an effect, but I'm certainly not planning on, it may go into hibernation from time to time, but I mean, how hard is it to answer a few emails and renew a website domain
exactly.
name, right? It's not going anywhere.
And you do it because, like other people who do this sort of thing, because you love it.
Right,
It's your hobby.
exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And it helps you get cool jobs, like the one I'm about to
That's
start. I mean,
right.
I definitely think that there is a strong correlation between all the time and effort I put into all of the Mighty Ohm stuff since 2008 and the fact that now I'm looking at this new job. I have to say, like, I absolutely think that those things are, part of the reason I started my website and the blog and the projects was because I wanted a job like the job that I'm about to start. So I had a little bit of vision into...
Oh, okay. Well, you're different from me. I just put it up. I've always just done my magazines and put them up there because I like doing it.
I liked doing it, but I didn't have reason to thoroughly document what I was working on until I decided that, you know what? It would be really great to have a portfolio of projects online that I could show potential employers, and maybe someday that'll help me get a job. Well, obviously, I wasn't too far off.
Yeah.
So,
Well, after 20 years, I've started to realize that yes, if I went back to a company, I would start documenting shit.
Yeah.
So- oh, boy.
Well,
Well, good luck, Jeff.
thank
best
you.
of luck. And hopefully I will be seeing you at Maker Faire, and if we do any broadcasting from Maker Faire, you'll be back for that.
Yep.
That'll be good.
Yep.
So I'm excited. I'm
Yeah.
excited for you, man. That's really awesome.
Thank you very much, guys, and thanks for having me on the show again. And I hope to do this again. I'm probably going to be all stressed out and frazzled next time. Like, I got this board I got to tape out tomorrow, and Jerry's
Yep.
on my ass again.
Yep.
Tape out. You're still using the old
Yeah,
See,
he's
I
still the tape guy,
I
huh?
started in chip design. Some of those things
Yeah.
are programmed. I also cringe anytime anyone says dice. Like, I can get this chip in
Right.
die form, or multiples would be dice. I always
Yep.
cringe when I hear
Dice.
that. Yeah,
Yep.
they're dies.
And I can't help myself. I have to say film. I'm going
Yeah.
to film a blog, Just like,
Right.
yeah, I have to hand crank.
I'm gonna Betamax this new blog, right?
There's a monkey grinding this
Yeah.
reel of cellulose film,
Well, thanks for having me on the show, guys. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, man. People can find
No
Jeff
worries.
at Mighty Ohm on Twitter, at Mighty Ohm, mightyohm.com/blog. And you could probably find him back here because we're not going to let him get away from the amp hour. So, it's good times.
Indeed.
All right, Jeff.
All right.
See you next time.
See you guys.
See ya.